Good morning. Welcome back to the Electric Bison. Thanks. Well, at this stage of the game, down on the war developing with Mexico, the 4,000 man army of General Zachary Taylor has left the Nueces River and is marching its way down to the Rio Grande. It's been doing it for over a week, and they've come a long ways. They got a long ways to go of the 150-mile stretch. I've concluded that the persons doing the marching were pretty tough hombres. They were wearing brogans. This fascinates me. They were wearing brogans that were designed so that you could put that shoe on either foot and it would be the same. In other words, it was like a equal opportunity shoe. Maybe it made it easier if you're out on a party the night before to find your shoes and put the right one on the right foot. But you could put a shoe on either foot. Now, it's hard for me to figure what that would feel like when you're walking. I've walked those distances in my life, and boy, your foot gear, it makes a big difference. But they were tough if they had that kind of shoe, and they did. They also had to eat that hardtack that was made by the Baltimore Union Baking Company. It was hard on your teeth, not much to it, just a hard biscuit. So I think a lot's been made of the Catholic and German, French soldiers that were immigrants. Half of the army was immigrant. That army, 3,900 to 4,000 men, was actually smaller than General Marr's Irish Brigade in the Civil War, when you think about it. That's what we were going off to start a war with. But anyhow, that army had about 50% immigrants. And many of them were Roman Catholic, especially the Irish. And many of them had come in because they were hard pressed by the famine in Ireland, and they'd come over to this country and thought they'd get a second chance, and being in the military was, I guess, their first opportunity. But quite a number of them also had been in the British Army, like John Riley. There were a number. We'll visit with who those were that were in the different regiments of the British Army, but they were pretty skilled soldiers. Anyhow, they'd been doing quite a bit of walking every day through the dust, going down to the Rio Grande. The big thing for them, I think, religiously, I mean, a lot of them, they all would have been sons, if not grandsons, but probably sons of families who had been trying to keep their faith during the penal laws in Ireland. The penal laws went on for 200 years, from 1600 up through the end of 1700. And those, they killed priests. I mean, basically, that's what, it was bad news. If you were a priest, you were out of there, one way or the other. And so the Irish Catholics for 200 years had to live pretty much without priests. And what they had done to adapt to that, Father Sarsfield O'Sullivan up in Butte told me how this worked, but they all had a piece of paper, and they would keep it in their pocket or in their shoe or something. And the piece of paper had the first 8 lines of the Gospel of St. John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and so forth. And they felt that was the essence of Catholicism, just those eight lines. And they would use those pieces of paper even when they didn't know much else. If somebody got married, they'd use it to bless the marriage. They'd use it to bury somebody. And so they were pretty well adapted to getting by without priests. Now, that being said, the first 40 or 50 years of the 1800s was under the influence of a guy named Daniel O'Connell. He was the Ireland's great liberator, and he would have been around during these fellows' lives. And what O'Connell did is he was the first one to advocate for nonviolence. Before Gandhi, before Martin Luther King, he argued that there should be no violence because the Irish would get the worst of it from the English. But he used constant pressure. He had mass meetings. He had all kinds of different things they did that were direct action to make the Irishmen aware of their faith the Roman Catholic faith. And when Alexis de Tocqueville came through Ireland, he's the guy that wrote Democracy in America and observed us here in this country. But when he went through Ireland, he was amazed at how close the Irish people had come to their priests. And of course, you can understand that if they hadn't had any for 200 years, right? Well, the thing about it is O'Connell's big battles were trying to keep the British government from, or the Church of England from getting into the chain of command and deciding who got to be a priest. He did not like that, and so the priests that were in Ireland were Catholic priests. I don't know what the lineup was with the Roman Church, but they were not church. They were not Church of England or Church of Ireland, which was a variation on the Church of England. So these fellows that were marching down to Matamoros that had come from Ireland, either through the British Army or directly as because of the famine, that was their worldview. They were Catholics, but they were Catholics with a Irish twist to it. So, to my way of thinking, the biggest thing on their minds was, then the week ahead of us now, was we were going into the spring equinox. The spring equinox, that's when the night and the day are both the equal length, right? That's the Irish probably wrote the book on that kind of stuff. But anyhow, the night and the day were the same length, and these fellows would have noticed that being out in the field. And then there'd be one full moon after that equinox, which was March 20th in 1846. And then there would be the first Sunday. And that first Sunday was Easter. Well, for the Irish, Easter was a very big thing. That was a central part of the religion, the resurrection, the death and resurrection of Christ. And they had big arguments with the Roman Church over, when that should be celebrated. They were arguing over that since 600 with the Roman Church in Ireland. It's interesting that the Irish, they put up quite a fuss with Rome. And I guess that's probably why they're distinguished by being called Irish Catholics. But anyhow, the first Sunday after the spring equinox would have been in 1846, would have been April 12th. And April 12th is the day, according to the court-martial officers that tried John Riley, that's the day he got a pass from his company officer, Morel, who he liked. I mean, they got along fine, to go to Mass. And so he went across the river to Mass, and he never came back on Easter.